Hi everyone, welcome back. Today I have a very special piece of content for you that I am very proud to be recording and filming. So, Brian Coval, for those of you who follow him, you probably know that every so often he will receive a donation to play a $500 challenge against like the decks of his choice, or sometimes it'll be the 5 league. And today he has gotten another such challenge from his patron subscriber Spunky. Spunky wanted him to play the Grixis Control / Days Undoing deck against a version of Bant, kind of whatever I felt was the best version of Bant for the metagame right now. So that's what we're doing today. This is the list I am bringing to the table. It's very close to the Dark Bant list that you all know and love. I haven't really made too many changes, but I will briefly touch on some of them. I am playing in the sideboard a Nissa instead of the Paradox Zone that has been in previous lists. I was testing this in regular Bant, and it was really impressive to me. And I think that in a world where Boseiju is a big part of the metagame, at least in the other 4-color control decks, and um, Narset is like a big player in the metagame, Nissa is just a slightly better card than Paradox Zone is right now, where just the not getting hit by Boseiju and the lands you control having haste to immediately take down a Narset on 3 loyalty or a Jace that has brainstormed is very important. Another big one is the basic planes. Previously, I was running 2 Hydroblasts as a way to kind of combat Blood Moon, but I kind of had a realization that if I just run the basic planes in the sideboard instead, it gives me extra outs where Teferi can bounce Blood Moon or I can Prismatic Ending a Blood Moon. So it's like I'm cutting one answer to Blood Moon, but I'm adding kind of 4 to the mix, which is very important. The other card that is maybe a little bit less played is Tamiyo. Brian and I did share lists before we started playing today to kind of make sure that nothing was too far out of line. These all the cards are like somewhat reasonable because obviously if you know what you're playing against, it can be pretty easy to just metagame really hard against it. But as you can see, this is pretty much a standard Dark Bant list. Tamiyo here, I've kind of been liking instead of say like another Teferi or like another a copy of Jace the Mind Sculptor as an example, for a few reasons. One, I think Tamiyo just is really good at putting together your graveyard synergies, like making sure Uro is in your graveyard or finding Loam plus Raven's Crime. And additionally, it is card advantage that you're still gaining card advantage through like an opposing Narset or Hullbreacher in play. And so like I think Jace is kind of a liability when the fair decks are playing just like an absolute ton of Narsets these days. So that's kind of why I've been liking Tamiyo, and I'm hoping to see it perform a little bit today. Again, other than that, not too much. We are going to be playing 5 rounds. I will link Brian Koval's channel in the description because he will be giving you his side of the content as well, and I'll be giving you mine.
Hey everybody, welcome to the pre-challenge chat. I am Bosh and Roll. I'm here with Pokemoki. What's up, Pokemoki?
Hey Brian, how's it going? I'm doing pretty good. Excited to be a part of this. When you reached out, I said something to the effect of, I'd jam Blue Mirrors if it was free, and the fact that we are doing a challenge for it, makes it all that more awesome.
Right, and it is not free today. We got Spunky, who has been an awesome supporter of the Bosh and Roll channel and other channels in the Magic space. He's willing to throw real money at good content, and he wanted to see Grixis versus Bant, so we're going to play 5 matches for $100 each. High stakes. I've done, I think, 3 of these before. This is the 4th one, and I'm excited about it. I love this. And what do you think of the matchup? Because I think it's actually close. This is going to be good.
Yeah, I think it's close. You in your content and like on your podcast have talked about the place in Grixis like in the metagame over the past few years, and it was in a rough spot for a while, mainly because of Uro. But kind of as we've seen with the Jeskai decks, throwing the Narset and Hullbreacher and like maybe like a couple copies of Days Undoing into your deck can be an effective way to fight through that. And so obviously that's present here. I think that makes the matchup very close.
Right. Plus, Hidetsugu consumes all. Just a defensible main deck piece of graveyard hate that's also a threat. Like Grixis was playing 2 or 3 copies of Cling to Dust just for a snowball's chance against Uro, and it still wasn't good enough. And now that there's like this real card that has text in other matchups, and I'm really excited about that too.
Yeah, this one is interesting. I have tested the Grixis deck out a bit, and frankly, I was a little underwhelmed with Hidetsugu. But it's possible that like I was not playing it well or timing it well. And I think that's going to be an interesting dynamic in the match. Because like when you want to time it, like do you want to, just nuke like a 6 or 7 card graveyard with no Uro in it, or do you want to kind of like force them to like spend their whole turn escaping Uro that maybe you can deal with and then get it, or things of this nature where it's the fact that it has sort of like suspend 1 for the graveyard aspect makes it so that it's not just always going to be good. You have to time it well.
Right. Yeah. Just do you just spew off Tormod script? Like you're also Witherbloom Command deck. You're also a Life from the Loam deck. You have Endurance, and I bet at least one of these games over this 5-match set is going to come down to decking, and you're much better off in that world than I am. So just constantly keeping graveyards empty might just be the play pattern, or maybe it's like when you're on 5 mana, it's time to play the front half of Hidetsugu Consumes All. So like the turn where you would evoke Uro into 7 mana, escape it immediately, I'm 1 turn ahead of that. Like, I don't know. Like, we're just going to see how this shakes out. And if I have the luxury of timing it the way I like, or...
It's going to be very interesting, yeah. I think that the decking thing you brought up is definitely going to be relevant. I think one of the advantages of Dark Bant over maybe different flavors is that you can refill your graveyard very quickly with, Witherbloom Command or Loam or things like that. However, that means you deck faster. And if you are exiling the yard with Hidetsugu, the endurance is preventing the decking is going to be much less effective. So it'll be very interesting to see how that plays out.
Right, and I've been on the Bant side for so long. I've been playing Bant basically since Dreadhorde Arcanist was banned in various flavors, and just the comfort of, like, my Volcanic Island gets wasted. It's like, oh, I'll Loam that back up or Endurance it back in eventually. But in Grixis, it's gone. There's 1 Days Undoing in my list, but that's mostly a combo payoff, not really like a value engine. So the idea that once my card is cast, it is gone and it's not coming back, and the 60 cards I have in my deck are the 60 cards I get to play with. I don't get to play 80, 90 cards in a game, which sometimes happens in Bant. Like, I'm going to have to keep an eye on that during our matches too.
I will say, when I played Jeskai, the Days Undoing to recycle win cons into the deck has come up not a non-zero amount of times, but yeah, I do agree it's mostly to combo with your Narsets.
For sure. So real quick, let's get this out of the way before anyone complains about it, because there's always someone in the comments. We have open lists. We've looked at each other's decks, and we both have some choices that might not be stock, but we both signed off on each other's list that this is an appropriate, reasonable list for the Legacy metagame. We do both have some bad cards, some dead cards. We also have some straight bangers. Like, I have a Ruination in my sideboard. You have a Nissa Who Shakes the World. And these are just cards that we think are good in the list. Neither of us built for this playoff specifically.
Yeah, I think that so it's funny you mentioned both of those sideboard cards, because I think those 2 specifically are kind of influenced by the addition of Boseiju into the format, where, Nissa has frequently been a card like Paradox Zone in previous lists. But I think between Boseiju existing and like the Planeswalkers being a big part of these mirrors, having the Nissa that gives your lands haste, is really important, and not being exposed to a thing that like a lot of decks are playing. And same with Ruination instead of Blood Moon. I remember you had it might have been with Grixis against like Cloud Post, and like you played the Blood Moon, but it just like didn't really matter because they just had green mana floating and they just killed it and then comboed you. So it's just like, yeah. So I think it's nice to see these small adaptations for sure.
Yep. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we go play these matches?
Like I said, I think it's going to be tough. I actually think that Dark Bant is probably slightly unfavored, just because the games are going to go really long, and these haymakers like Ruination, or I know you have a Sorin in your list as well, my sense for these control mirrors is like most of the spells end up resolving, and so you kind of can look at it through that lens. And I think that Ruination is like something I'm gonna have to play around a lot, where either like hold a land or two in hand, or make sure I have access to Loam, things of this nature. That being said, I think it's gonna be grindy, really decision intense, and I'm really excited to see how it plays out.
Yeah, that's cool that you said you think you're slightly unfavored, because I thought I was slightly unfavored, and that probably means we're going to have a great match. Do you want to make a prediction? How are we going to split these?
I think if Dark Bant goes 2-3, that's kind of around what I expect. Essence is slightly unfavored axis of it, so that's what I'm looking at.
I also expect a 3-2 from. I'm not sure which way it's going to split. That's well within the range of like a punt from one of us, or just variance will come up at some point where like we get into these board states where whoever cracks it open first, and like you draw the Nissa or I draw the Sorin or whatever, it's like, oh, there it goes. We're going to get in spots like that. So I expect a 3-2 one way or the other out of this. Before we sign off and go play this, if you're watching on the Pokemoki channel, I'm Bosch and Roll. That's Bosch and Roll on YouTube, also at Bosch and Roll on Twitter. If they're watching on mine, where can we find you?
So you can find me on Twitter at Real Pokemoki, or my YouTube channel is /C/Pokemoki. So that's where I'll be.
Great.
And I will be recording my side of these matches as well to
Awesome.
put up on the channel.
And I'll have all your links in my video description. And if you're watching on my channel, just scroll down and you can go watch.
I imagine. Oh yeah, sorry. I was gonna say. I imagine most of my viewers know you, but I will include your links as well.
Yep, my viewers know you too. Like you get a lot of shout outs. I think you and Marcus Ewald get the most shout outs on my channel out of anyone. So this is going to be great. Thank you so much for doing this. And let's go get that money.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. Let's do it. All right, let's jump right into it. So this is round one. We are on the draw. This hand is not great, but it's certainly keepable. And I think the mid to late game Mystic Sanctuary is important enough that because I know the matchup, I'm fine leading with a Ponder, and then like next turn I'm gonna look to Brainstorm this back into the deck. So I think I want to hide the Force of Will from potential discard. And then Loam is actually one of the more important cards in the matchup, just because it can help you get around Narset passive and kind of keep your Uro flowing. So it's really nice to see that here. The Grixis deck does play a lot of basics. However, the Wasteland can still be effective sometimes. Because there was no turn one play, I'm kind of expecting to see like a Baleful Strix here into like a Narset on turn 3. It's possible that Brainstorm was the cantrip too, and they just wanted to maximize that as well. Ironically, if they thought Seize Me here and take the Brainstorm, that is kind of going to be rough for a few reasons. Just because I wouldn't be able to Brainstorm into Force blue card, and then I would also like have to keep these Swords to Plowshares in hand, both of them. So I think here I'm going to do what I talked about, put back this, and then one Swords is probably fine. Let's get all our colors here with a Tropical Island and cast Ponder. I do think I want all these cards. Ending is nice to hit a Narset if like they play one here and then like force my force. which looks like it's going to be happening. Oh, Hidetsugu. Interesting. Okay, well, that's interesting. Definitely makes my play a little bit awkward. I don't want to counter this now. And I kind of, this is very interesting. I might just play the Uro and put the Wasteland into play, and then after the second mode of Hidetsugu, Wasteland them. Um, they didn't fetch for this Valk, which means they might be Landlight. I could also, oh, that's very interesting. Just running it out. Could also just Wasteland them now, but then the Wasteland. I could play Wasteland, let Hidetsugu exile my graveyard, and then Wasteland them. I think. Oh no, because then they're in their main phase. Huh. I have no idea what I want to do here. I think it might just be land pass. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. Land pass. Next turn we'll do things with Uro and Wasteland and whatnot. It's just rough that I can't really advance. I could Ponder here, but I think Ponder's just pitched to Force Will. I don't necessarily mind having the Savannah under my library. I think that even though Ending uses my mana well there, it's not a good use of my turn. That I'm fine with. All right, so I think this turn is pretty straightforward. I'm going to play this, play the Uro. And this gets sacrificed. I will. Oh, I guess I should technically Ponder first, right? Witherbloom Command is a quick way to get back Uro, or like fill the graveyard for Uro. And I think I can force pitch Force and then have like a potentially hard cast Force of Negation going for the next turn. So this is what I'm going to do. Witherbloom Command is like, it doesn't have great targets. You kind of have to line it up with Baleful Strix for it to be like an even card. But I think that is still okay. All right, so Jace coming down. Obviously, I have to counter this. I imagine they're going to force back here. And that is one of the nice things about Dark Bant, is we have Ending for 4 colors. If they have double Force, double blue card, obviously I am in a good amount of trouble. Which I think is looking like what's going to happen here. And this is one of the problems I view with the matchup, is like it can be hard to uh, push advantage in the early turns. Green, white, blue, black. It can be hard to push advantage in the early turns because, like, you don't, double force, double blue card. All right. You just struggle to do that, you know. And so, like, even though my opponent's line or like early start wasn't too oppressive, you know, it still was rough on as far as like me being able to um, like pull ahead. That's fine. Right, so here I think I have to kill this. Green, black. That's pretty rough too, that I did not hit any lands here for Loam to bring back. Although it looks like they're just playing Hullbreacher here, so I'm just gonna Swords it anyway. Yeah, the crucial turn where maybe I could have played differently is when they ran out the Hidetsuga on 3 and I passed the turn. It's possible Ponder was just better there, but I don't think so. I think what it really came down to is just the proactive threat with 2 Force of Wills is just like gonna get you. And that's just gonna happen sometimes. It also felt like they didn't really draw much of their like black removal that isn't particularly good in the matchup. I will escape Burrow here. Do I want to put anything on top? Probably not. Not yet, at least. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do I want to? Okay, I think I do want to use Loam to get back 2 lands. And this is going to just start letting me hopefully pull ahead of some sort. I think I'm likely. Oh, okay. I was gonna say I think I might just get edicted here, but maybe not. This vessel, the all-consuming, has been putting in work. Like I talked a little bit of smack on it in the. That's fine. In the pregame, but been doing good here. So am I dredging? I think the answer is. So if I dredge and hit an Uro, how good is that? It's okay. I think. I think what I want to do is just fetch back a Swords and then play Uro and Swords the Hidetsugu. And then potentially pressure the Jace with an end step Endurance. I do have enough to do this. Also, it's possible. Okay. I think that was maybe in retrospect a mistake. I had the option to dredge Loam and then play and escape Uro this turn, and it's possible I should have just done that instead. Um, that's fine. I'm not countering that. Okay, so I'm gonna play Endurance here. No targets. And then we'll see if I can peel a way to answer the Jace. Unfortunately, no, but we'll see if we can get through some other things. Yeah, so this is kind of the thing. It's just like the Jace in play plus the double force kind of really hampered my ability this game, where they've just pulled ahead in so many cards, and even though they have some number of dead cards in their deck, you just like can't really play through this. Yeah, I'll use this here. I could have Endurance to put that away, but like it's fine. It's feeling like they have a Force of Will in hand. Yeah. All right. This game's pretty much over. Gonna happen sometimes. Yeah. I'll concede. That's rough because game one, I think, is the one where it's like, if I have a shot to win, it's in game one. I think in the post board games, it gets a lot harder. We'll do what we can. So I've thought a bit about how to sideboard. I really like these 8 cards. And generally what I do is I trim on some swords. The Wastelands aren't that great, honestly. And then because I'm bringing in the planes, I and to trim the Savannah. And then the other cards that I like am not super sold on is I don't think you need all 4 Force of Wills. It just gets so much worse when Pyroblast is part of the equation. And then there's like one more card I'm not super high on. What was it? There's one card I know I'm like not super sold on. It could like be this. I think it's like Uro or Endurance, where it's like you saw in those games the Endurances didn't look great there. Just between all the Baleful Strixes, it's just hard for it to actually get a hit in on a Planeswalker. I think I'm going to try and cut one and submit. Oh, actually, I think Witherbloom Command might be a little bit worse. I'm gonna start like this, and then if we get a game 3, I'll bring back the Endurance and cut a Witherbloom. And just like put pressure on the board. Like that turn that Jace had to minus to bounce the Uro obviously was quite good for me. I think it gets much worse post sideboard because there's like 4 Pyroblasts in the deck now, and there's the Ruination to worry about. Oops. Sorry. Pondering next turn, obviously. But this hand is pretty good. Obviously, it has a proactive threat, and the only thing it's missing is lands, but with 3 cantrips, it's fine to... Let's go blue-green. And just ponder right away. Okay, this is fine. I think what I'm going to do, it depends what they do on their turn. If they tap out for like Baleful Strix, I will play Narset. If they just hold up Pyroblast, I'm going to hold up Mystical Dispute. Because like basically what I don't want to happen is I don't want them to Pyroblast my Narset and then untap and play their own. Next turn I can play Narset and still leave up Dispute, which is pretty nice. I think I want to Brainstorm here. Okay. That's actually pretty good. Because I don't have any black cards in hand, I'm going to shuffle away this land. Alternatively, I could also actually think, okay, because I have the 5th land guaranteed, what I'm going to do is wait a turn, and then I'm going to play Narset with Dispute and Hydroblast backup. Just because like my thought process was, okay, let's say they blast my Narset, I Hydroblast back. Even if it resolves, now my shields are sort of down for the like tap out threats. So I'm just gonna leave up all the shields. This is like a common theme in Control Mirrors: is you want to leave up all the shields when you can. Hmm. Do I care about this? Not really. I can like Pyroblast or Hydroblast it later if I really need to. So I'm just going to do the line I talked about. And then if they force, I have a Dispute for that, which is nice. Unfortunately, I will have to like I could have fetched a plains this turn to play around Ruination a little bit, but I think I'm still just countering Ruination on the stack anyway. So obviously minusing here, get a command. See, look, if this was endurance, I might have missed. So perfect. Sample size 1 must be correct. You know how it is. Unfortunately, I don't have a second blue card for this Force of Will, so if they have like Ruination plus Protection, I am in trouble. I think I'm just going to take my 2-for-1 here. And don't really care about this. I'm going to cast a Force Will here just to use all my mana. It's interesting because it's like I could have used the Witherbloom Command, but I think I'm going to have more options for that in the future. Brainstorm, I'm gonna look to save for future turns. I'm totally fine trading here. This is another 2-for-1 for me. Obviously, glad to have that. That's fine. Interesting that he's leaving in all of his Hitsugus. I'm not sure if that affects my like decision making. Interesting. All right, let's do this, and then I think I'm at the point where I'm fine killing one, just because I kind of know they're at 1 card in hand, so I'm not too worried. I think if the game goes long and I can just utilize my advantage, I will be in good shape. I have Force blue card and then Flusterstorm if the last 2 cards are like important thing plus counter backup. Now they do play 1 Hull Reacher. I think I'm willing to play into that a little bit. I'm gonna put back these 2. Then I'm going to drain for 2 and return a land. Obviously, it's not likely that I'm only getting 1 additional look at a land, but I am milling the Uro, which is important, especially because this Hitotsugu is gone now. I'm gonna brainstorm here just to kind of see what I hit first. Huh. I'm trying to think. 1, 2, 3, 4. I won't have enough to play Narset and escape Uro here. I think I'm going to go put back Or yeah, I'll do like this. I'm gonna force pitching Uro, and then if they power blast it, I have a Fluster Storm. Oh my god, I'm so stupid. I don't have double green. That's really bad. All right. All right, that's a pretty big punt. I apologize for that. For some reason, I thought I had double green. Don't. Uh, I'm just gonna leave up a hardcast force effect, and then just do this next turn. Let's get a Bayou here. Green, green, blue, blue. Can't really regrow any cards, so it's more just a matter of like, what would I want to leave in for like a potential endurance shuffle? I think the Teferi is important enough, or like to get back with Tamiyo. And land is pretty good because it lets me hardcast a Force of Negation, which I think is better than playing out Narset. Feels like they might have like a Fatal Push in hand. So I could cast Force of Negation here to protect the Narset, or I could let them take Narset. I think I'm going to let them take Narset. Because now it's like if they want to do, like if they take Force of Negation, it's kind of the same as me having cast it, but then I can like hold up Flusterstorm or like have more options, and then like the life loss is not nothing either. I actually joked with Brian before this match started that I had a Force of Vigor that I forgot to like put in my sideboard when I sent over the image to him. But seeing this enchantment creature and his propensity to like leave in 3-ish copies, I might actually bring it in. Just as like a way to kill that plus Baleful Strix or something like that. Protecting the graveyard is like nothing in this matchup. I will consider it. I will certainly consider it. Because like if I'm leaving in 2 Witherbloom commands for basically just for Baleful Strix, it might just be better to bring in a Force of Vigor instead. Kind of want to try it out. When I sent him the message, I was like, oh, I forgot Force of Vigor. It's not going to matter. I'm not killing Baleful Strix with it. But I kind of forgot that this was an enchantment when that happened. Okay, so they did take the Force of Negation, which means it's kind of the same. I'm not sure what's happening here. They're fetching, so obviously the last card is not super important. Or we have an answer to... Sorry, what I should say is we have an answer to the last card, no matter what it is. Sorin the Mirthless. Important question is, do I even care? I think the answer is yes. There's an interesting thing where it's like, do I want to attack with Uro first and play out Narset? Or do I want to do it the reverse way? I'm going to... If they block, I'm winning. I will do this first and get the most information. So now they have 2 really difficult threats to deal with. The Uro and the Narset. Okay, so they're leaving in all 4 Hitsugyu. It'll be really, really interesting to see how, if that changes as the match goes on. I'm gonna get a ponder. Oh no! Well, a little awkward for sure. Where if I had minus Narset first, I would have potentially found the Nissa. Depends where the ponder is. Okay. Alright, so I think I actually do want the Force of Vigor, ironically. Or unironically. Depends on how you view it. Then on the draw, what comes out? It's possible that something like Uro gets a good deal worse with all the Hitotsugus in. That being said, I think the card is just too good to not play, especially against the decks with Swords to Plowshares. I actually do sometimes shave down to 2 Uro, like Swords to Teferi, Narset, Jace. You know, it's just Uro is actually not that great against those decks. Do I want anything over these swords, like a Swords to Plowshares? The thing about swords is that it's so good against Hullbreacher, and like that is a card that can really get you if you're not careful. I think Endurance might be a thing I want just to pressure on the draw. I think I will trim a Witherbloom Command. Especially because, like, kind of as we saw in that game, with the graveyards being exiled frequently, it's not as guaranteed that it will be able to return a land, even. So, I'm going to do it like this and run it. And we'll see how it goes. I'm going to keep this. I'm actually going to leave play the Misty in turn 1. Am I? I was thinking if I would dispute a Baleful Strix. I think the answer is no. I think being on the draw, just being able to hit Narset and Jason stuff is too important. So no, next turn, assuming nothing too strange happens, like they could stop Thoughtseize me here, but next turn, assuming nothing too weird happens, what I'm gonna do. This is something I've talked about on the channel a couple times, but it's something called like protecting your range, where you, when you can, you want to play the same way you would if your hand was weak as if your hand was strong. So I'm gonna ponder here before playing my second land, which, as if you saw it, you know, in game 2. I didn't have a second land drop when I pondered like this. Like it was the exact same start, Sanctuary plus Ponder. I actually think I just want all these stuff. I think the land is more important than the Endurance, but the Endurance is actually fairly important. Just as a thing to do the end of next turn. But basically, it's like if I ponder and don't play my second land, sometimes my opponent is going to Pyroblast that when it's incorrect to do so. I'm actually going to dispute this Baleful Strix. Just because I have 2 Narsets in play. Or in hand, rather. This is probably representing Pyroblast. So now next turn I get to play a Planeswalker with protection. Obviously, my shields are down here. Yeah, that's fine. I think the answer might be no, just because I have Hydroblast and Ending for this if I really need to. So now here's the question: is do I fetch Tundra and play out Teferi, or do I fetch a basic island to have a little bit of insurance against Ruination? I think I have to get the Tundra. This is actually really close because Narset stops them from drawing cards. It also digs me deeper to a Force of Will. Teferi would bounce the Hitotsugu, and if they untap and play a Narset, Teferi can't draw cards. I think Narset's a little better here. Just because I don't want them... I basically want to increase the odds that I don't get blown out by Ruination here. And playing Narset does that because it digs deeper and it prevents them from cantripping as well. Okay, I'll let that go. It's not terrible for me. That is a 2-for-1. We'll see what they find off this. Obviously, they have one unknown in their hand. Ponder, okay. So you have Ponder and one unknown. If the last unknown is Pyroblast, obviously that's really rough for me. But Ponder lets them find... Alright, I'm going to ending this. The thing is, okay, so I think their downtick with Narset is more impactful than my downtick with Narset because they play 4 Pyroblasts. And they play Ruination, all of which I'm incredibly scared of right now. This also lets me ponder this turn to find a force. So white, blue, black. It also will let me play Teferi next turn, potentially. I think I just need to dig for a force effect. Have they ponder? Actually, not that bad. So what I'm actually gonna bluff Force of Will here, and with the plan of I'm gonna take the damage, and then just use Force of Vigor in the end step. Also, it's bluffing Endurance. apparently. And it kind of shows me that they don't have like a answer for that right now, which is of course good for me. So let's get a Chopper Bayou. Do we need? I guess we don't need another blue source of mana, so let's just get Bayou. Although they could have hardcast Force of Will here, though if they do hardcast it, it taps them off of Power Blast. I think I just need to hold up hardcast Force of Will here. It's too likely that they have interaction in their hand. No, I'm still gonna wait a little bit. I'm actually going to Force Will this. And then I'll play this. Obviously prompts action. We've gone through one Power Blast effect. So this is not great against two Power Blast effects. Not great is a bit of a stretch, but it's nice against Force of Will. Power Blast plus Force of Will, because they're either going to have to tap off a Power Blast or have to pitch cast for Force of Will. This is also nice against Hull Breacher in particular. I don't want to draw the basic island here. It's a great pickup. All right, and now I feel like I'm firmly in the driver's seat. They could have some number of lightning bolts in hand. That's possible. I'm gonna let that go. I think that it got its 2-for-1. I would just rather. I have the answer to this in hand. I'm going to let that go. I will white, blue, black. Do this now, just so I can brainstorm. I'm not sure what I'm looking for off the brainstorm. But that's okay. This will fetch the basic planes. Although, see, this is the problem. It's just like, sure, I can play a bit around. I can play a bit around Ruination, but it's still just like a super blowout, you know? I would really need to sandbag a green source of mana and Life from the Loam in my hand. Ponder is interesting. That's fine. Because they could have chosen to kill the Teferi with a red Elemental Blast. But I actually don't mind them. So this one I have to counter. I'm going to pitch Brainstorm. I think it's holding up force just the most important thing. I will get the basic planes. I don't know how relevant it is. And then there's a question of, do I cash in the Teferi for a card right now, or do I not do that? Well, now I don't do that because I have the Raven's Crime lock going. Essentially. I'm gonna let the Ponder resolve, see what it finds. Because if it finds like a Thought Seize, then I just fail it, of course. Um, uh, I can let this resolve and then bounce it with Teferi. That's what I'm gonna do. And then I can even just retrace crime and kill it. I will counter this because it's 2 cards. So now lands are good draws because they're just ooh, that's pretty good. What am I looking for here? All right, so we've cast a bunch of brainstorms. We've cast 2 ponders. I guess I'm just looking for a row. That's fine. In the draw step, I will chase crime. I guess I will minus on ponder. I should have done that last turn. Whoops. So can I play this, or can I do this in escape arrow this turn? I can if I whatever. I'm just gonna I'm just gonna retrace crime. And then just black, green. Mill in a row. I'm gonna name endurance so that I can't accidentally mill it. Plus blue, blue, green, green. None of this really matters. And then in the draw step, retrace crime. Next turn, I would minus Tamiyo to get back a land. Attack them, play Endurance, do the same thing. Whew, all right. Got there for round 1. We will be back for round 2. All right, we're back for round 2. Hand seems perfectly serviceable. Again, no turn 1 cantrip from Brian, which again leads me to think, more things like Baleful Strix, more things like I think this needs to be second, right? And then this goes on the bottom. Sorry, so more things like Baleful Strix, more things like Narset and Jace. Things of this nature. There is the Strix. I am going to ponder. Oh, no. That's the awkward part. I don't have a forcible effect I can find. But if they play Narset, I can't ponder anyway, so I am going to ponder. Of the thing, like Uro is a thing I might not want, so I'm gonna leave that to shuffle it away. However, if I don't need to dispute anything, then I will draw the Uro. Looks like this is just going to be a Hitsu. Perfectly fine with. So I'm going to draw the Uro here. Worst comes to worst, it is a blue card for Force of Will. This is an interesting question. Now, I could hold up like Endurance, this turn. And then leave the Witherbloom Command for next turn to like quickly refill my graveyard, or I could just take my, even trade with Strix this turn, and then I think I'm going to take my even trade with Strix this turn. I guess, and I'm going to mill them, obviously, because I already have the land to get. So, and now I know there's one less Narset and one less Jace in the deck. That is pretty good. I'm going to leave this as like a thing for Mystic Sanctuary or Brainstorm or whatever. It's actually really good for me. Like that was an incredible mill for me. Just only one Jace to deal with, and then less Narsets in the deck. Didn't ask for more. And I have no impetus to act here. Like I could play out the Uro, but I think it's just better to leave up the hard cast of all my spells. I could even have considered using the swords on the end step there, but I kind of want to bait the attack and put endurance into play. Actually, that's a lie. I'm a dirty liar. I'm gonna just swords this now. And now I'll just play the endurance. I don't want to tap low on my turn. There's no need for that. I will get a Bayou because I think double black is going to be sometimes more important. This is just going to die to like a fatal push or a sudden edict. So this one, I sacrifice this one, and I'm still just going to leave up my stuff. Again, I'm in no rush. Mystical Dispute is maybe getting a little bit dead. But I think it's fine. Like, worst comes to worst, you just pitch the Force of Will. Do I Force of Will this here? It does kind of give them a window to tap out. I'm going to let this happen. If I could have Force Negationed it, I definitely would have. I guess I will get a Tundra, green, blue. I'll leave up. This can get another Trop if I really need to. I guess if I draw another Endurance, I can also get another Underground Sea. But I think I'm going to go like this. I don't even think I would play out... I don't even think I would play out a Baleful Strix if I drew it. I'd rather just hold a Force Negation. Yeah, this one I don't care about. This gives me a great opportunity to escape Arrow. And if they fetch 5 times and hardcast Force of Will, the turn 9 dispute will come in clutch. I have exactly enough. I don't really care about any particular cards in the graveyard. Plus, they're going away next turn. Looks like this might be what's happening. Which makes sense, you know, it's a 4 of in their deck, and we haven't seen any. Oh, that's fine. I'll just dispute this. I will put this into play. Do I ending the Strix? Probably not. So the thing is, so now what can happen is with this on the stack, they can fetch and fatal push if they have one, but it looks like they don't. It's obviously great for me. I'm gonna let this resolve. I know that sounds crazy, but I think it's better to fight over the Days Undoing if they have it. And if they don't, I can just untap, you know? Also, I'm just like getting so close to the point where if I untap, I can just like start hard casting these force effects. So like to pitch Force of Will and Force of Negation, you know, for that just feels really bad. They chose not to shuffle. They are putting the Ponder back on top, which I'm okay with. Another Strix is fine. So they're gonna have Ponder one unknown. Just gonna play this out. Ending the Narset. White, blue, green. I'm just gonna hardcast a Force Will here. It's a good time too. I do have blue sources where I can fetch the Savannah. This is one thing that like you really, really want to work towards in your games is if you're hardcasting your forces when your opponent is pitch casting theirs, you will really start to pull ahead from that. And obviously sometimes like that's not avoidable. You know, I'm not saying like, you know, Brian is played incorrectly. Um, that's just kind of like it is what it is. And here I would actually, yeah. So I'm gonna force this pitching Narset, and then I can escape Uro and hardcast Force Negation on subsequent turns. Do I have? Yeah, I do have one Underground Sea left in the deck. I was thinking if I had a thing to fetch that wasn't um, the Mystic Sanctuary. I'm gonna Swords this. I know I could ending it, and like Swords is a little better against this because it's like much more tempo positive. But I think the way I lose is if they somehow like land a planeswalker I can't deal with. And of course I would want ending for that. Next turn. Just gonna hardcast Force of Negation on anything they do. I'm gonna save that as a card to put back with Brainstorm. I don't think the mana is important. I'm gonna Brainstorm first. And I'll just leave this up so that they can't kill it with the Vessel. And then just next turn. And I would just force a Fatal Push here, obviously, because the game will be over. Yeah. Okay, got game one. Like I said, I think game one is a little bit better for me than the Cyber games become, just because of Pyroblasts. That's like the main thing is Pyroblast. But I'm gonna sideboard the same way as last time. Which way was last time? I trimmed one of these, two of these. This one was like in the maybe pile. Trimmed both Wastelands and a Savannah. And then I'm looking for one more cut. So it's usually either Force of Will or Endurance. It's kind of been what I've settled on. Or Swords. It's usually like one of these three. On the draw, like the problem is like like the one of Hull Breacher. If you only have one Swords to Plowshares in your deck, the one of Hull Breacher can be a nightmare. I think I don't want to do that. Endurance is a little better on the draw just because it can pressure Narset. The Force is also good at that though. It also cut the dress down, but it's kind of nice. Like it's good against Baleful Strix. It's 2-for-1 against Baleful Strix basically. But maybe that's like a little bit not worth it. Let's go with the Endurance. Again, pressuring the Planeswalkers are really what the game revolves around. The 2-for-1s off Strix are annoying, obviously, but I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna try this and see if it works. Also, what's my blue count for Force of Wills? 8, 9, 10, 11, 14. We have 26 blue cards. That's funny. All right. Maximum defensive on the draw against like the Planeswalkers. I think that's the way you want to be. And Ruination. Like that's something I noticed in round one is like, all right, I'm a little bit ahead, but like they ever play Ruination, it just absolutely wrecks me. And so I was like, oh, I need to find Force of Will. I need to find Force of Will. Let's go with this. Oh, that's right, Force of Vigor. Shoot. Get out of here. Maybe Endurance is better than Witherbloom. All right. There's no time. There's no more time to resubmit. But I think. Oh, perfect. All right, submit. I always do this. I'll have a game plan in mind, and then I'll just like completely bail on it. I think Endurance, just being able to attack Narset, something you can proactively put onto the board and the end step. These are all really important. Where it's like you just because you hold up your mana a lot because you have things like Hydroblast or Mystical Dispute or Force of Negation. or you want to represent those things to make them less likely to tap out for a threat. And so endurance in that context is quite important. I think that's more important than like Witherbloom Command to fade even with Baleful Strix. Though Baleful Strix is annoying, don't get me wrong. Interesting that the plane's coming up where if this was a Savannah, I would guaranteed have double green for endurance on turn 3. And we've kind of been of the opinion that Ruination is a blowout anyway, so it's like maybe there's no use playing around it. That's something to think about for this round. I'm gonna shuffle this. I think I'm looking for something proactive of my own to do. If I could get back like 2 lands with the Loam, potentially I'd consider it, but just getting back the 1 fetch land there is not what I want. I mean, it's like a kind of important pitch card, or card that I like wouldn't be so gung-ho about pitching. So if they tap out for like a Narset or something, I might just let it ride. And because I have these 2 endings in hand, just like take the -1. But they are not doing that, so I'll get a drop. Ironically, Uro is a card I mind pitching much less. Interesting that they're attacking. It means that they're less worried about endurance, which I'm going to play out. Just to use my mana here. And I know there's no Snapcasters in the list, so I'm just not going to target either player. Hundred Blast is quite a good draw. I think what I'm going to do here is attack for 2, and then I'm going to ending the Strix. Just because it makes it a little bit more difficult for them to protect a Planeswalker. And I don't want to play the Uro into Hullbreacher. Hullbreacher is like usually fairly telegraphed. And like they're just going to put the Strix on defense next turn anyway, and I'm going to have to deal with it. I'm going to do that, and then I can force pitching Uro. And then if they Pyroblast, I have a Hydroblast for that. If they force back, it's a little annoying. But then I can like untap and ending it, you know? And then Tamiyo is like kind of the prize here. Or like if I get to play this and minus, I get back the Ponder. Next turn I can cast the Ponder. If they have Ruination plus 2 pieces of protection, I'm pretty in trouble. How badly do I care about that? I kind of just want to say okay. Like I have this endurance on the board that can pressure it. Ooh, Turok. It's kind of awkward. Well, they are missing a black mana. Kind of hoping to draw a land there. But Mystical Dispute is actually very interesting because I could potentially hardcast it. Yeah. Okay, so I think that's what I'm gonna have to do. Is hardcast the Dispute. Hydroblast. Pyroblast. And then force pitching Uro. Because if I had drawn a land there, I could have just played Tamiyo with Hydroblast backup. No, I got a force pitch Uro here. The last draw, force blue card, then I'm in trouble. If they're not, then I'm in great shape. All right. Officially in great shape. So now this Tamiyo comes in. Sorin is dead. I'm going to... Interesting. So I could minus on the Ponder and force out the Surgical. I could plus... I'm going to minus on the Ponder and force out the Surgical. It does cost them 2 life here, which is nice. If they choose not to use the Surgical, I get to cast Ponder. And then... Fluster Storm is probably the least impactful card here. But I do get the plus Tamiyo and name Fluster Storm if it survives, which it might not. They do have 4 cards in hand. Surgical and 1 unknown, or 2 unknowns. But then the nice thing here is if I draw the Loam, I can play it. If I find the Ruination, I'm in big trouble, of course. And then I'm going to play out 1 land. But I would definitely... I'm going to leave in 1 land in hand. Sorry, I'm going to leave 1 land in hand to help play around. Sorry, to help play around... excuse me. Ruination. I didn't brainstorm there because like they were representing Hull Breacher. Yeah, us grinding through a Karak and Sorin. These are some of the cards I was definitely worried about out of the sideboard, but quite good. I think obviously quite good here. They may or may not have Surgical left in the deck or in their hand, but I'm gonna leave it up because it's a thing to think about. I think I have to brainstorm here. If they have Hull Breacher, it's unfortunate. There's a Flush Storm in hand, so I'm not going to Judge Loam. At least not yet. So put these two back. Really difficult decision here. I think the line is put back Force of Will. And then Brainstorm again. It sucks that I don't have 2 blue here, but I had no way around that. No way around that, I should say. 1, 2, 3. That's interesting. I have 6 mana. Yeah, alright, so I'm gonna let this resolve. And then what I can do is play Nissa with Flusterstorm back up next turn and present lethal. They could have Lightning Bolt, that's an issue. The lands do lose to Lightning Bolt. So then it's a matter of like, do I want to push lethal, or do I want to they have Days Undoing, they didn't cast it. That's so close. Ugh. So yeah, Days Undoing 2 unknowns. This is desperation. I'm gonna counter it. if they force pitch blue card on Nissa, then I just get to kill the Narset. Yeah. It's kind of what I thought might happen. It was like they were trying. It felt like they were trying to find a different blue card. But now I'm like in okay shape, sort of. I get to put Expressive on top, which is annoying. Or Red Elemental Blast. Interesting. They must have like Ruination as the last card or something. Or something that I'm not aware of. That's fine. Okay, I'm going to dredge Loam here because I know the top card's a land. Green. Blue. Black. Oh no. Oh no, I would just have to fetch. Okay. So we're fine. We're fine here. Get an Underground Sea. Ending the Jace. White, blue, green, black. And then, so the last card is Pyroblast. If they draw something good this turn, we can't do anything about it. Next turn we have Endurance and Force of Will. So yeah, that's great. Narset was like the main thing I did not want to see there. Do I play that and just like play and escape it? It's a great question. We know about the Pyroblast. No, I'm just gonna wait a turn. Oh, but okay, actually. No, I'm gonna wait. We know about the Pyroblast, but I think it's fine to just do this and then play an escape arrow right away. I'm not gonna target anyone with Endurance. We'll attack first. I think I want to shuffle this. I like can't explain why. All right, let's just shove with arrow. Obviously, this gets Pyroblasted, but that's still a 1 for 0. And they have this Endurance that they don't have an answer for right now. Whew, and we got there. Okay. Those were some crazy games. Oh my god. Yeah, but yeah, I'll be back for round 3. All right, we are back for round 3. This is not a keepable hand, unfortunately. As much as I like Karakas plus Uro. This is much better. I think Swords is the least useful of all these, so I'm going to bottom it. opponent, or Brian, I should say, is on their classic Island Ponder Keep. It looks like, which as a blue mage, I can respect such a decision. I'm gonna do the same thing with a Trop. In an unknown matchup, I would lead on the island. Yeah, I think. It's so close. Obviously, like Loam is nice, and Brainstorm plus Loam is really nice. The issue is it's such a slow game plan. I think I'm still gonna keep it. But I'm not happy. I might just Brainstorm on turn 2. Beautiful. This one of Mystical Dispute has been coming in so incredibly clutch. All day, really. I will hide the Endurance. You know, if they have a Thoughtseize effect, I think that's the most important one to kind of hide. Okay. Don't care about this one. It makes Loam a little awkward because there's one less land in the yard, but we will draw that land eventually. You know. It's possible I should have brainstormed there, because if they pass, then I'm kind of worried about Hull Breacher. I think I should have, in retrospect. Like, I don't know if I'm going to play out the Endurance this turn anyway. The Hull Breacher, force blue card, force blue card. That's like the big punish here. Yeah. I'll just do this. This is a better use of my mana anyway, and Brainstorm gets better the longer you wait. I will do this since it's only one card, and you know, it potentially gives them options to get back with Mystic Sanctuary. It might just be fatal pushing my Endurance here, which is kind of nice for me because it okay, so putting it back on top. I'm okay with that. I'm in a Brainstorm here. I think that's just the best decision. And here what I'm going to do is go like this and play out the Uro. Ooh, that was actually a kind of a big punt. I was supposed to put the Loam on top and put the land in my hand because my goal here is to just play the Uro and leave up Mystical Dispute, you know? But if they have Hull Breacher, then having a Loam on top is much more important. I figured they wouldn't play it. Like, if they had Hull Breacher, they're going to use it on Brainstorm and just kind of hope that works out. And so that's kind of why I stopped worrying about it, but it was still just strictly better to uh, put the Loam on top. This is fine. Just fueling my Uro. No problems there. So 3, 4. Could potentially like Brainstorm end step and then just hope to find anything to do and then escape Uro. There is a fetch land on top of my library though, so I'm just going to I mean, obviously it looks like they very clearly have Force of Will back. I could also just like Brainstorm here. I'm gonna Brainstorm here. This looks weird, I agree, but I think it's correct. Because if they force this, then it's like kind of okay. Then I still have the Force Will in my hand, you know? This is one more card in the graveyard for Uro. And if I find like a Swords or a Prismatic Ending, I might just let all this go. Okay. So it's like, oh no, I missed, but I didn't actually miss. Because now I can just kill the Hitsugyu, force their force, hard casting, and then kill Narset. Fuck. Second Narset really throws a wrench in that. But I, of course, have no other lines than to do what I'm doing here. The issue here is if they play Narset and have the combo in like all in one turn when I can't untap and pressure. And now I actually think I want to escape the arrow. I, of course, know that I am, yeah, exactly. But I think it makes them use 2 cards. Is rough. Oh, but maybe that's bad. Maybe I'm supposed to let them use 2 cards, escape Uro, and then force them to have 2 pieces of removal? Huh. That's difficult. I'm just going to play Loam for no value. And then if I really need to, like it depends what happens, obviously. If I really need to, yeah, they're Narset. I can dredge Loam, play it on no targets, and then escape Uro. Or if they find a way to kill the Endurance, then I can dredge Loam and escape Uro and still have Loam in hand. This list is only on 2 copies of the Edict effect, Sudden Edict, and so they're going to be like a little bit less likely to find it. Interesting to do that instead of leaving open the black mana. It feels like they have Pyroblast almost. They did shuffle though. All right. It really feels like they're trying to set up combo. I'm going to take 1 draw step. a little unfortunate. um, but you just can't do anything about that. Like, it feels like they have the fourth Narset or Hull Breacher or something of this nature. I'm going to put Force Will on top of my library. Yeah. Like, it feels to me like they have like Pyroblast in hand, or they have the one of Days Undoing, and they're just like trying to fit the combo together, and they're just going to cast Days Undoing plus Protection. Although they might not. So now the question becomes, again, do I dredge Loam? I think the answer is yes. Raven's Crime is a great draw here. By draw, of course, I mean dredge. I'm going to leave up Force of Will now. And this time I won't dredge Loam. Or will I? Now I think I... okay, let's think. So I can crime, escape Uro. All right, I'm going to dredge Loam. And now, even if they have the Days Undoing, I still have a board, you know? Um, and of course, I'm just dredging Loam here, because I couldn't draw from Hull Breacher anyway. I already played a land for turn, so I can't like pick up the Karakas or anything. I can just F6. Looks like they might have a piece of removal. Oh, oops. I probably should have played the Loam. I'm gonna do this because this is a force block, and now I just get to escape Uro. Actually, oh, I can do both, right? There's no way I can't do both. Escape Uro and leave up Force of Will. Of course I can. Of course I can. I have so much mana. Yeah, so the sudden, this is what they were looking for the whole game, the sudden Enix, and it just like came a little bit too late, where Endurance got to take down their Narsets and keep me in the game. Oof, sick one, very sick one. So I'm gonna sideboard the way I've been doing. Bring in the planes. Excuse me. It's possible that I actually think Savannah might be better than Karakas. Hear me out. You need a lot of green sources, and playing around to like play around Ruination, you need to like save a green source in your deck, but like you might not have that many. So I'm gonna try that. I'm gonna try the Savannah and see if Karakas would be better. I just feel like protecting Uro with Karakas is generally more of a thing against this sort like the white removal spell decks, not the not so much the green ones or the black ones. Sorry. So right now, let's get rid of this. And then what's the last card? I've done this like so many times now. Why can't I remember the last card I was cutting? Was it Dress Down? I think it was Dress Down. Yeah. Okay. One thing in round two, the sideboard game, we saw no copies of Hidetsugu, or we saw one copy. So they went through a lot of their decks. So it's possible they're boarding down, and if that's the case, then Force of Vigor might be worse than some other options like Dress Down. I gotta tell you, we're only about halfway through. I am starting to feel the fatigue, uh, of playing blue soup mirrors in a row, back to back to back. I wonder if Brian's feeling the fatigue too. I think honestly, he will be better suited for this than I am because he plays a lot. He films a league pretty much every single day, so he's very used to the grind, the pushing through, the mental stamina. So I think that's going to be an advantage that he will have as the matches wear on. This hand looks pretty great. Force is unironically a really good draw. I think I can do better. Engineer's like nice versus Strix. I guess if they didn't do anything turn one, Strix might be in the cards. Fourth mana source though. I'm gonna shuffle. I think guaranteeing myself to draw a like extra land like that is not exactly what I want. And it's not even clear that playing engineer will be good. Like we don't know if they're playing Strix. They could even be siding down on them, though I kinda doubt that. I'm looking for more proactive thing. Like I'm looking for things like Narset Teferi, Hydroblast, Flusterstorm, Dispute, things like that. Huh. Okay. Oh, Karakas can bounce Turok. Oh, I don't think that's a winning strategy in the long run. So I'm not worried about that. This could be like an incredibly good bait for my opponent where like, all right, I'm going to attack with Turok a few times. Going to get you to play out Endurance and block, and then when you tap low, I'm going to untap and jam a big old thing. Get out of here with your Veil of Summer. Turok stays small. I'm going to force this pitching force. And then I will untap and jam my own Narset while I can. I should say while I can around. No, I'm gonna do this. This view's pretty nice. This protects the Narset, which is pretty solid. I think I would play out an Endurance if they like go to kill the Strix, basically. It feels like they have Forceful in hand because they pass with 5 mana. They paused when I cast Baleful Strix, and they're like, not worth it. Not worth it. So I'm gonna get back Island. And do I want more black mana or do I want more white mana? We'll get back Bayou. And we already have a white card in hand. How many black cards are we rocking? We're rocking Raven's Crime, we're rocking Plague Engineer, and one more Baleful Strix. Let's just get the Savannah in that case. And then I will play out the Endurance. And they can hardcast a Force here if they want. But then let's be untap and play this Brainstorm. Not really have to worry about anything. Second Strix is quite nice. I'm going to put back this and this for now. I'm going to get the planes here. I'm actually going to save the arrow for a turn. Just because I can hold up a hardcast dispute against, like, say, like a Sorin or a Ruination. Now I can't. That's okay. Like, their hand is probably, like, I'm going to play this now. It's a little better against Surgical. And I'm going to save this just tiny bit of ability to play around. To play around Surgical Extraction, basically. Well, can't do anything about that. But of course, right now, the Narset is locking it down. I wonder if Jace was the draw, or if they've been sandbagging it, waiting for like a turn where they can do more to protect it. Hard to say. Okay, so left the card on top. A little scary. Hmm. I'll get back Veil of Summer. Because now Hydroblast plus Veil can protect. That's kind of the card I'm worried about. Main thing is to find a way to win before decking. It's like the big thing. Um, that's fine. I can ending that if I really want to. Yeah, because like if they have an answer to Uro or an answer to Endurance, then it's possible that I could potentially deck. I'm definitely in a very favorable position. Soren. Be a good find. I'll name it Uro. I know it's gonna hit, obviously. Alright, we'll lead on to Teferi. Very difficult decision here. So I could bounce. So I could ending Narset, bounce the vampire token, kill Sorin, but then they can use a Jace for the turn. I think that's fine though. I'm gonna leave up a Trop. So blue, white, green. Nice thing is I could just potentially get back Narset with the Tamiyo if I want to. Alternatively, I could just like plus it and ending the Jace. We'll see. We'll see a lot. A lot of it depends on what they have. Fine. I'm gonna do this so that they can't Pyroblast anything this turn. And taps them out, then I can like swords this and then do my turn and whatnot. I'm gonna get back the Narset here. Yeah, kill this, put Narset to 1 so that it can't search for anything. Right now they can't brainstorm with Jace or Days Undoing, and I have a Hydroblast for a Pyroblast type effect. The interesting question is, would I use it on something like a Expressive Iteration? I don't know. Now they have a Ponder in hand that's dead. Hitting Teferi. I can't do anything about that. I could potentially like a Prismatic Ending the Narset at instant speed now that I know when I know it can be like countered by a Force of Will. I'm not gonna do that. I can just wait till end step. Could also untap and hit the Jace, you know. Ponder 2 unknowns. It's a smart play. This target's right. Yeah. Mm. So we're both on nothing, and I guess okay. We'll start with this. Resolve, so I don't have to worry about Hull Breacher. It's kind of nice. Um, I'll ponder here. I think Brainstorm's good enough. Definitely putting this on top. It's very clear that they don't have a Hull Breacher in hand. I think I'm gonna do this, and oh no, I can't. Whatever. I'm gonna shuffle these 2 away. Ooh. So they're gonna have 3 cards in hand. They played this game very well. I like their decision to do the Naked Days Undoing. That's fine. I'm not countering that. What have we gone through? Not much. 2 Narsets are accounted for. That's it. There's still 2 Narsets of Jace, a whole creature. Everything that I worked through, the sword and everything, is back in the hand. I'm going to fetch away the Mystical Dispute, because obviously it's not good. Oh. Nice. Yeah. I'll just concede in the interest of time. I'm not beating that. Yeah, that was pretty solid. Yeah, I need to be a tiny bit ahead on the board before the thing, but that's okay. Do I want this for? No, that's bad. I just know it's bad. This might be not good though. Like dress down could be better. Dress down's kind of nice. I'm gonna try this. I think on the play, it like stops Hullbreacher for a turn. It's better against like Turok, things of this nature. I felt they played it pretty well. I felt Brian also played it pretty well. It was kind of awkward. No, I mean I think minusing Tamiyo is correct there. It lets them discard stuff from my hand, but I think that was better. The only thing you could say is like, oh, let them make you discard 2 cards, then you can ending the Narset at instant speed. But I think that that's bad. That would have been a super blowout, obviously, right? Where it's like we discard 2, the ending. Yeah, but that's not. You can't play like that. That's just bad. That is no good. Those are really sick games. Again, that was the first Ruination. Game instantly over. It doesn't really matter that I have 2 basics. If I'm empty-handed and everything else is not going well. But again, not much to do around that. You just kind of have to draw Loam early and like fill up your hand, or just like sandbag a land or 2 and to play around it. It's a good card. It's a good card. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. It is a good card. It does kind of look like they're going lower on Hitsugu. Maybe I'll, yeah. For the next round, I will board down on the Force of Vigor and put in some other flex card. A little bit risky, obviously. But, you know, it has the Mystical Dispute, which is like the most important card to have in your hand early on. And the only thing it's really missing is mana sources, so I'm just not going to worry. We'll get there. We'll totally get there. What if we just got there? I won't brainstorm now. It's a really good series of draws. Now the one thing here is, do I play into Pyroblast? Because this is rough against Pyroblast Land Narset. With 6 cards in hand, that's pretty likely. They have 4 Pyroblast and 4 Narsets. Although if they take the Dispute here, like if they take Dispute here, then obviously I'm jamming. Although if they don't take Dispute, does that mean they have Narset? Like, let's say they don't take Dispute. Does that mean they have Narset? Probably. But then they're thinking like, oh, can I beat this other stuff? Yeah, they took Tamiyo. I stacked that ponder wrong. Oh well. It's fine. I might not have wanted to run out the arrow anyway. This was also bad. All right, fatigue is setting in. Because now it's like if the arrow is on top, then I don't want to draw it. Ugh. That was bad. That was really bad. Let's just get Tundra. I guess this lets me do a hardcast dispute if I need to. That's what I'll do. Oh, also dispute plus Hydroblast. Letting this resolve, they take the Nissa. Okay. So obviously I'm ahead a bit on card advantage, but 2 of those cards are wrapped up in lands. Not too much you can do about that, which is fine. I'm gonna fetch an upkeep. We'll get a Savannah. Okay, I'm gonna ponder. Look for some more interaction, like Force of Will or Hydroblast or Blast Storm or things of this nature. Obviously, they're getting pretty low, which is nice. I'm gonna dispute this. Force them to tap out. Probably about as good as use as I can get off of this. If they have to force this, that's good for me. I get to put them to 2. I'm gonna save this land in hand. Ruination is the card that I'm worried about. Force of Will's a pretty good pickup. Obviously, they have the Pyroblast, so they can hit the Uro. And if they have like Surgical or something, that could be tough. I think if that happens, though, I'm gonna let it resolve again. When you're close to Hardcasting Force, you don't want to do anything else. I could. Okay. I think if they Pyroblast the Uro in play, I'm gonna Hydroblast it. Because Ruination, they'd have to have Ruination plus like Fatal Push to really get me. And even then I have 1, yeah. This just puts on the most pressure for them. That's fine. Now they can Surgical. Oh, that's okay. I guess they haven't hit a land drop yet, so it's like, okay. They're at 1. Their Force of Wills are turned off. Oh, they can't Surgical. That's right. Oh my god. That's sick. They can't Surgical, they can't Force of Will. They're gonna need a pretty good turn. Blue, green, green, blue. 1. Actually, they have no exile-based removal, so I'm gonna leave in the ending. Because I think if I were to fetch something with Mystic Sanctuary, ending is obviously the card I would want. I'm actually going to get this and play it. some Ruination Insurance. I would let, like, if they went to Power Blast Uro, I would actually let it resolve. I'm gonna let that resolve. I'm gonna force that. Sure. That hits the carpet. That's fair. I'm gonna play an Escape Uro. Okay, interesting. So now they're gonna have to have two things here. Because if they bounce Uro, I can Veil of Summer. Woo! Whew! Alright. They can Veil of Summer, but I have Force of Negation as well. Okay, got there. Back for round 4. Alright, we are ready for round 4. We're on the play this time. Always where you want to be. Easy keep. Force blue card, kind of what you want. Ending is nice, as we've already established, and the swords, especially in game 1, swords is a lot more targets because they play the full 4 Hitsugu. Again, I'm going to do a thing protecting my range. Not going to play my land before I cast Ponder. What do I care more about here? Honestly, I think I care more about protecting Narset than I do Baleful Strix. Oh. And I'm going to play out this because if they play their own Baleful Strix, I want to Swords at end step, untap, and play my Narset. I'm going to get a... Bayou here. Between Bayou Trap, or Underground Sea, sorry. Underground Sea turns on... Ooh! So this is either Brainstorm or the main deck Pyroblast coming in clutch. I've drawn my main deck Mystical Dispute quite a few times in this set so far, so I think it's only fair if they do find their Pyroblast here. If so if they force, that becomes the question: is do I force pitching Strix or force pitching Force? Force pitching Force is much better if Narset resolves, because then I get to tick down and find a blue card and like force again, and then like Narset again, and then like I'm in the driver's seat. I think I should go. It's close because like if I lose the fight over Narset, having the Baleful Strix in my hand as like a way to recover some like card advantage can be nice, but obviously it's bad into their Narset. Also, I feel like when I lose, I'm like, oh man, um they had like a threat, and then they had double force, double blue card. So I'm gonna try and play to that. If I had another blue card in hand, I actually would not minus here, because they do play some copies of Lightning Bolt. Um, which it looks to be the case here, that they found one. But because I like just want to, yeah, brainstorm. Because I just want to make sure I can force a big play on their side of the field, I'm definitely going for the, here I'm going to counter it. Everything trades, and then I'll ending the Narset. I'm actually going to play my own Narset. It stops their Brainstorm in hand. And it stops them if like have a Jace in hand. If they have the combo. It's worse against second Lightning Bolt. But they only play 2, so I'm not too worried about that. Play the Jace. Expressive, interesting. Oh, they must not have. That makes sense. They must not have another land for Jace. I actually think because the Narset has down ticked twice already, I would rather play Teferi this turn than ending it. Ending, yeah, might yeah. So they're definitely looking for land number 4 there. Ending might be able to kill Jace, and then just getting to Teferi down now. Prime. Prime is really interesting, especially with the Teferi already in hand. I think that's just the play. Obviously can't draw a card yet. But this means that like if they draw any Force of Wills, they don't do anything right now. And then I can like decide to either next turn like ending Narset so that I can just draw a card. Yeah, that's fine. Land was a really good draw there. Just lets me plain and simple do all this. Next turn I can Tamiyo, bring back Ponder. Strat. Can't do that. That's okay. I think pretty clearly Thoughtseize was the draw for turn. I'm actually just gonna let this go. And there's no real reason to play out the Raven's Crime here. I can kind of just like wait for them to get lower on cards in hand because they're just gonna discard the Brainstorm with the Jace right now. You know, that's fine. Plus now Crime is safe in my hand from the Hidetsugu. I'll just get another. I guess I get Underground Sea here. I have double green, right? I just want to get double black. All right, so green, green, blue, blue. Everything's getting exiled anyway, so like this is like one of the only times in Magic that it just literally doesn't matter what I exile my graveyard with the Uro. I'm gonna save all this. So this was what they drew for the turn. Obviously sacrificing the Uro. I'm actually just gonna Wasteland them. And then I'll hold up a Force of Negation for the Hidetsugu. I actually think I will crime them now. Oh wait, I can't. I minus Teferi last turn. Silly me. I mean, you probably leave with Brainstorm here, right? As the discard? I can't imagine. That's fair. These are two of the last three cards in hand. 6. I want to leave the Raven's Crime in the graveyard, obviously. I'm just gonna fetch Mystic Sanctuary and put Ponder back on top. I'm looking for Loam now to end the game with Teferi. And I'll save this so I can hardcast it Force of Will. Plus, I don't like necessarily want to escape cards from my graveyard anyway. I'm actually going to put the Uro back. I'm gonna mill 3 and drain them for 2. Green, oops, black, green. It doesn't really matter. Oh, I found the loam, so. That's what I'll draw. Yeah, okay, cool. There we have the lock. Eventually they can't do anything in hand. I escape Uro, kill him with Uro. Alright. Solid game there. I'm going to board the way I have been. I'm gonna go down to 1 swords again. That was kind of working for me. I felt like the dress down against like things like Baleful Strix and Uro, or not Uro, Barak is a little bit better. I still want the Veil, or the Vigor rather. So this, we've been cutting both Witherblooms, and then 3 mana sources. Yep. The only question is, do I want Witherbloom instead of Force of Vigor? Because again, it looks like they're boarding down and Hitotsugu, but obviously leaving in all 4 Baleful Strix. I'm gonna try that and just kind of see how I like that feel. Because Witherbloom Command can like quickly reload after a Hitotsugu exiles the yard. They've been getting pretty low too. Like you can also sometimes kill them between like their Thoughtseizes and their Sorns. They don't have life gain. It's possible. It's not good against Hitotsugu because, or not. It's not good against Turok because Turok just like grows into a 3/4 right away. But they did show a willingness to just run it out as a 2/1 early in the game, but I imagine that's like a not common circumstance. Um, Hand obviously a little bit land heavy, but Carpet is a good card. I'm going to play this on turn 1, the Carpet, because if they fetch a source of blue mana, then it will let me either Uro or Teferi on turn 2. And if they don't, then they're passing their turn 2. And since I didn't have any protection for anything they could have done on turn 2, I rather like that. It's good for me. I'm going to always yield to this. Use Carpet of Flowers ability? No. If they play out Hitsugu, I have a very interesting decision where I could I'd play Teferi when they're tapped out and like potentially bounce it. I could also play Uro, put in Mana Source and hold up Mystical Dispute. Um, the problem then is that Uro gets exiled by the Hitsugu. Huh. That's fine. I'm gonna let that slide. This turn is just gonna be a play Uro turn, I think. Actually, I will go. Eh. I am gonna play out the Uro. I can command next turn. Uro gets me ahead on lands, which is nice. This is actually really nice here. This was a good draw where now I can dispute something with Veil backup. It's still a +1 for me. Also, one thing I was thinking, like in the back of my mind, is that like because it looks like I can't escape Uro next turn, that might influence their plays in a certain way, and like the Witherbloom Command could be like, surprise, kill your thing, mill 3 with the carpet mana, and like escape Uro. So that was on my mind as well. Now that the Uros are not in my deck, I have to be very careful about how to win the game. I have 2 Endurances, and I have a Nissa, and I have Tamiyos to like rebuy some of those cards. And that, in theory, this is like not exactly a win, but it's like I literally just need like any other like win con in my deck, and then Teferi will get me there alongside Raven's Crime. I almost want to dispute this. I'm going to. Because the nice thing here is if they Pyroblast, then Veil draws a card. Also, when they know about dispute, it gets so much easier to play around. And we'll get black here. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to put dispute back on top, bounce this, and just draw it. So this was the draw for turn. Okay. Yeah, well. Now they can pay for it. This is a little unfortunate. Obviously, I think my plan was fine. They could have drawn a land. But that does sometimes happen. I think we're still in like reasonable shape. Like we have endurance ready to go. Obviously, we'll target myself to deck a little slower. We know about the Strix. This dress down was obviously a good draw. I think even with... Yeah, but that's shuffling 4 fetch lands back into the library. Okay, no, I think I have to target their graveyard. I can't shuffle 4 fetch lands back into my library. That's such a bad like reduction of resources. Or like reduction of the average card quality of my deck, I should say. Perfect. That one I don't really care about. Oh, I guess I care that it hits the carpet. I keep forgetting that. I'm not going to shuffle either player. Strix is a pretty good draw as well. Yeah, my draw steps have been pretty solid, for sure. We'll play out this land. It represents Missing Sanctuary if I really need it. It represents a basic plains, I suppose, too. I will do this now. With a Power Blast, I would Veil of Summer. Just to get the 2-for-1. I will fetch the... no, I'm going to fetch the Underground Sea. Because I'm gonna get this back with Command this turn anyway. I'm gonna mill myself still. They Power Blast this. I think I just say okay. They didn't. I'm gonna play this out. Because it is just a basic plains. If I need it to be. Also, again, Hardcast Dispute. That's what I need. And of course, they're getting a little bit low on life. I could also Brainstorm and like look for Force of Will. But there are 5 Force effects left in the deck. And a Flusterstorm and a Hydroblast. If they cast Ruination here and like don't do like have no mana floating, I'm going to open up a Hypergeo and see what my odds are hitting with like 6 in the deck, basically. Because then I would have 2 pieces of protection, right? Like I'd have Counter Magic plus Veil of Summer backup. Obviously, they are in a rough spot simply because their mana situation is not good. Which, looking back to that decision to dispute the Brainstorm, some results-oriented thinking, obviously, but it ended up working out pretty well. I'm just not sure what I want to do. What I want to do obviously depends on their turn a lot. Sure. I can chump Endurance, obviously. You're not bringing the planes? Did it get exiled to something? Did I forget to sideboard in the planes? I guess I must have. Awkward. I will fix that for game 3 if there's a game 3. I'll get. I'll get. I'm actually just going to attack for 2. I don't think there's any downside to it. And I don't really want to brainstorm looking for something this turn, because right now I can Force plus Dispute plus Veil plus Force Pitch. So I'm just going to do this. Obviously can't do anything about that. I still will keep the Endurance round over the Strix just because it is a much bigger blocker. Here we see Sudden Edict just looking real rough. It's never what you want against the deck with Baleful Strix. But like, you still have to play it, and you still have to keep some copies in, because like Endurance has been a big part of me being able to pressure and kill their planeswalkers. But it's just like, it is a downside of the card. I will do this now because why not? I'm going to hard cast a Force here. And if they Pyroblast the Force of Will, I will dispute the Force of Negation. But this is great because it lets me use all my mana this turn. Again, when you can hard cast the when you have a spot where you can hard cast Force of Will and it's not that bad, you really, really, really want to try very hard to do so. Whenever an opponent discards a card. Okay, so that doesn't. I'm going to Brainstorm, because if I find like Prismatic Ending or hell, even Source of Plowshares, I would want to cast it. And attack for 1. Pretty much no matter what they draw here, like if they cast a cantrip, I'm Force Willing it. And then this lets me... perfect. Now I'll Brainstorm instead, just to get a little bit deeper in my deck. Again, I'm really looking for Prismatic Ending. And then I'm going to Ponder. Shuffle away the lands. Attack here. They chump, they go to 4. And then I just force whatever they play, and then I win. All right. Well, I think I've been drawing pretty above average in these games. Like, just being perfectly frank, they've definitely seen... Ruination is the card I'm most scared about. they've definitely seen it way less than they should have mathematically, by this point in our set. That being said, I am 4-0, and we don't go easy. We're going to try and take it home. We're going to try and get the clean sweep. All right, we are back for the fifth and final round. This hand actually seems pretty reasonable. Like I mentioned many times, Loam is one of the more important cards in the matchup against the 4 Narset deck. The swords are a little bit rough early, but I'm just going to ponder looking for maybe a third land drop. This is pretty good. There's something I would... Oh, I guess, I probably... Okay, so if they thought seize me turn 1 and take my Baleful Strix, I can't force a will next turn. I think in retrospect I should have should have put the fetch land on the bottom. But they didn't have it, so never punished. And then this is nice. This lines up pretty nicely into Narset because it's like they either have to kill the Strix, in which case I get a 2-for-1, or they would have to risk the Strix hitting Narset, and then like if they can't minus twice or it goes away, I don't have to worry about the passive anymore. I'm going to hold up, because I didn't draw a blue card, I'm going to hold up the Endurance. This just gives me the best chance to stop the Narset. Actually, very fascinating. If they played the Narset, I think I would go for a kind of a blowout play where I just would not would let it resolve, and then or I'd cast Endurance in response and then let it resolve, and then what I would look to do is Swords, Loam, and then Swords. Where it's like, okay, so I have Endurance and Strix in play, I Swords this. Oh, gee, really looks like you want to force this so you can protect your Narset, and then I like Loam back the last white source, and then I Swords again. If this is a Force of Negation, that's really good for me. And then here I'm going to get a Tundra. Swords this again. And then push damage. I think you want to be the aggressor. If they force this, somehow, I don't think they ever would. But if they somehow do, I would not attack. Because I have the third Swords in hand. And I want to keep my board so that I can pressure their Planeswalkers. I'm going to Dredge Loam this turn. Get the land back with it, play Arrow. Obviously, I can't see my opponent's hand, and I can't tell, why they made the decisions they made. But I'm just saying, from my point of view, them wasting 2 pieces of counter magic on 2 Swords to Plowshares is just an incredible win for me. It's by far the worst card in the matchup. And so I feel like things are going well so far. Hitsugu's fine. I'm actually still going to dredge the Loam. A million Tulip Nuns there, obviously exactly what I want. And then I will... I actually can't even fetch Mystic Sanctuary here, so I will just play this. And I'm still not going to attack, and I'm certainly not going to play the Uro, especially without a card in hand. Another blue card in hand to pitch to it. Honestly, if they played out like a a Narset or something, I would at this point let it resolve. Because next turn I can untap Swords the Strix and then have a hardcast Force of Will ready for that. I think because I can't quite play Uro and hardcast Force, I'm just gonna leave up the hardcast Force. And do this now. It's just I'm never not doing that, so I'm gonna do it now. um I'm actually going to hardcast a Force here. I know this looks weird, but they've kind of shown some weakness. They have a Narset follow-up, it's rough for me. Okay. So that might have been a small misstep in that case. What am I hitting here? I guess this, because now they have to chump. If they chump here, Narset goes to 2. Oh wow, they're letting Narset die. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so I'm going to play out this. Oh no, I'm 1 mana short. Whatever. I still think this is okay. Thinking I have could Wasteland something, but I need to tap the Wasteland for mana to have a shot. I'm actually really surprised they let the Narset die. It kind of implies to me that they might have another one, or they just wanted to kind of give it a turn. It's fine. Did you still have the Ponder? I'm actually going to hit this one. Blue. White. Green. And because I have to fully exile my graveyard, whatever. I was saying because I had to fully exile my graveyard, I didn't want to use the Mystic Sanctuary. In retrospect, I probably should have. And put Force of Will on top. It's close. It's pretty close. A good draw. That's a good draw. I'm just gonna get the island here because there's nothing to fetch with Sanctuary yet. This is one of the things I love about the black version, is that you just you refill your graveyard so quickly. for Uro, you know. Like Hitsugo just went off. Not that my graveyard was kind of empty anyway, but like it just went off, and I already have a full graveyard for Uro. Okay, that one might have actually been a little sloppy. I think I should have not tapped the Wasteland. Because if I didn't, I could have Wastelanded myself, and then I would have still had the ability to put potentially. Wait a minute. I only have 3 green sources right now. Okay. So, yep, sorry. Green, green, blue, blue. Yeah, and I still would have had the ability to fetch for like a Mystic Sanctuary, and then like even put like the Witherbloom Command on top, which could be relevant given that they're at 4 or they're at 6. They could take 4 down to 2. I don't know. I don't know. I think that was a small misplay. Okay, but luckily their hand wasn't too good. Gonna try our best, obviously. Bring in the planes this time because I forgot last time. I've not been bringing this in most recently, so I'm gonna keep doing that. I keep bringing in Plague Engineer every game, and I've never seen it yet. That was a misclick. But I still think I want it. And like we said, we're boarding out Karakas. So like I mentioned in one of the games, Karakas can technically answer Turok, but like if you're bouncing it and then they're just replaying it picked every turn, you're not winning those games. So I'm just gonna leave in the dress down, up to either counter Turok on the stack or Veil of Summer the activated ability and like command it, or find dress down, use that, or block it with endurance or Baleful Strix. All right. I think if you get game 1, I like my chances of winning the match, but then if I lose game 1, I think my chances of winning a match are very, very low. Just because winning 2 cyber games with Ruination is very tough, because it's just like they're gonna find it in at least one of the games, maybe both, and if it resolves, it's really, really hard to come back from. As I've been talking about, like you basically just need to have drawn your Loam and like sandbag extra lands in your hand, and even then you're still in a rough spot for sure. This hand is great. Mine is missing a third mana source. I'm only with the Savannah. Obviously, it's a little bit heavy-handed. Like it's like, hey, I have Veil of Summer, but at the same time, Veil is one of those cards where you can't always play around it. Here they get their Baleful Strix, which is fine. I think being on the draw and having no other form of interaction, I would not look to counter that. I think I'm just gonna say okay. Although they did play it without playing, it's just yeah. If I had like another Mystical Dispute or something, I'm just so too cold to Narset to consider doing that. So I'm just gonna take some damage for a little bit. Hope that Uro can save the day. This one I think I need to dispute. Unfortunately, I think 3 a turn is a little too much. Hmm. I don't know why I tapped off of Flusterstorm. Oh, for Veil Summer. Duh. Duh. I will judge Loam here. Oof. That's rough. Um, I think I'm just gonna judge this again. Woo! Alright, that's kind of annoying. I'm gonna ending one of the Strixes now. I'm looking to set up a turn where I can play Nissa and then have Force or Flusterstorm plus Veil backup, which is gonna be this turn coming up. But it's annoying that like not only did Loam miss on lands, but I also didn't find like Uro or Raven's Crime. Right now, my secrets are known though, and I know that they can just like they know they can just fetch for. They know they can just fetch for a or like play a blue spell, and I can't counter it. Yeah, I mean, yeah. There's the land. Dang it. Uh, oh well. Again, not much to do there. What I can do is
Start with this. I'm actually really surprised that that just happened. So I'm gonna leave up blue mana. Oh, I can't. Oh, wait, yes, I can. So now I have Flusterstorm and Veil of Summer available because of Nissa's passive. It's possible I mistapped. I kind of just like wasn't expecting Nissa to resolve, quite frankly. Oops. Whew. Then I just get the Veil and Flusterstorm this, and they can't pay. If they force the Veil, I can still just Flusterstorm the Ruination. It doesn't matter. Woo! All right. This game was well played. Maybe a small mistap there. Could have left up the Savannah to cast Prismatic Ending off of a single land. That would have been better. I think my tapping was playing around other things, I feel. Like fighting over it with Force of Will. Nissa, much better than the other card here. Whew. And we got the concession. Wow. The clean sweep.
Alright, so this is by far the longest video I've ever put out on the channel, so I'm going to try and keep this short and sweet. We did end up taking the set 5-0, however, I don't think that's super indicative of how your average game is going to go. Like I mentioned in the video a little bit, I feel like Brian didn't draw Ruination nearly as often as he should have, kind of just from a math perspective, and that is, of course, the most impactful sideboard card in the matchup. And then, other than that, I feel like I, played really tight. I tried to do my best, and I hope some of the things that you took away, if you're trying to get better at control mirrors, are to really, really look for lines that allow you to hard cast your forces, either Force of Will or Force of Negation. There were a lot of instances there where, because I was hard casting mine and Brian was hard casting his, or pitch casting his, it was like helping me to pull ahead. Other than that, I think these games really demonstrated how much better the white cards are than the black cards in these sort of mid-range mirrors, where things like Teferi and Swords to Plowshares are, really good at dealing with Uro or, forcing you to uh, take action, whereas things like maybe Baleful Strix or Hitsugu are less good at these things, and obviously, Fatal Push and Sudden Edict are really bad against Uro. And so it's like, there were a few times there where, Brian would have like one or two Baleful Strix, and like, even though it's like a 2-for-1, eventually it doesn't like provoke me to do anything, or it doesn't kind of put me at a disadvantage while it's sitting in play. So I can kind of just like let it resolve, let it hit me a bit, deal with it at my leisure. It also turns on my Witherbloom commands, which is really nice. Compared to something like a Jeskai deck, there's actually just no targets for these, and so in game one they're dead, and you got to sideboard them out. So yeah, a bunch of little things. I said during the intro that I felt like Hitsuga was not a very impressive card in my testing, and I think that kind of showed itself here, where it's not doing enough. It's not doing what you want. It's too slow. Um, so again, I personally, if you want to play, a 3 or 4 Narset deck and like a blue midrange deck, and you don't like the Dark Bant style, I would personally choose Jeskai over Grixis. Either way, I really loved their matches. They were really back and forth, really decision intense. I thought that Brian played very well. I especially thought the game where we both had like 2 or 3 planeswalkers in play, and then Brian ended up having to cast 8 Days Undoing, where both of us drew 0 cards. I thought that was a really sweet game, and he played that one especially well, I felt. But yeah, those were the games. I hope you really enjoyed, and if you don't follow Brian, be sure to go subscribe to his channel. He puts out a lot more content than I does, and he's a very professional, very strong player. So, and that's all. I hope you enjoyed watching, and I'll see y'all soon. Bye.